Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Mbele Babade. I work for a Pan-African bank called EcoBank, which operates in 30 African countries. My job is to sell Africa. Just a couple of comments. Well, one comment and then a question. A question you'd asked initially, I think one of your devil's advocate questions, are investors looking at Africa? I think simple answer is yes. The point I wanted to make and the question I wanted to make was about 10 years ago, I went to the Middle East in the vein of this whole South-South thing to talk to the people in the Middle East, investors of the Middle East, about coming to invest in Africa. I didn't get a good answer. Last week, I was in the Middle East. The answer was very different. Things have changed. And I personally think that things have changed, and we actually have credible examples. It's not just talk to show to people. Things have changed. And I personally think that the change has come from two things. The push, which has come from some of our countries. Obi was part of some of the push where we actually did significant reform in some of our countries, and the pull. So I'd like to say thank you very much for the pull, which is commodity prices, to Mr. Sharma and Ambassador Jugin. Right? But I think whilst all this is happening, my question really to Obi and also to Professor Lawrence as well, as we as African countries, are we really focusing on what opportunity this has given us in terms of window of opportunity and the opportunity it gives us to restructure our economies so that in 10 years' time when I go to the Middle East, I can say Africa is a little bit more than a resource and a billion people consumer story. That's really where my question is. Are we really focusing? Are people focusing, or is everybody enjoying this boom right now? And in 10 years' time, it will be a different thing entirely.
Okay, Obi, you first. Are we going to see a restructuring of African economies?
I think that countries am I on?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. I think that countries are awake to the fact that competitiveness is the rule of the game and that they've got to increase productivity. And it takes quite a number of things for that to happen. And so the whole center of gravity of deeper reforms, structural reforms that change the competitiveness in important sectors. Take a typical case of Africa, energy. Energy is a big barrier to the competitiveness of the continent. Even still, a major issue is the relevance of the skills that are available in the continent. If you are going to take advantage of arriving investment, you have to have the critical building blocks that are available. I also think that, that an important thing that Africa is clearly embracing is that it's looking beyond, it's even looking within and saying, how do we get to that intermediate level of being able to be the suppliers of intermediate possibilities, even to our neighbors, and use that as a basis to really get into the global level standard that will ultimately enable them participate in trade beyond Africa, and that's key.
Professor Lawrence, do you want to add to that?
I think things are slowly happening, but what I am concerned about actually is too much emphasis on commodities and beneficiation and too little on Africa's agricultural potential and its manufacturing potential. And so I think there needs to be a balance. I'm not against the first, but we need to see a more balanced approach throughout Africa. And I agree with this idea that we need to capitalize on where the markets are going to be in the future. And in order to exploit those, we have to integrate ourselves. Because separately, Africa cannot provide the necessary scale economies. But as an integrated entity, we can see specialization. And there's a lot of complementarity potentially internally within Africa between expertise that is in certain parts and labor which is in other parts. So it's exploiting this diverse base in order to manufacture and to sell services and to sell agricultural products as well as commodities. That's really the challenge for exploiting the opportunities in the world.
Okay, the gentleman in the middle, yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Anand Singh. I'm a filmmaker. And, you know, it's always very interesting to come to these sessions and you hear about the commodities, you hear about industry, mining. The creative industries is something that I think, as BRICS, we need to take more seriously. The UK economy is represented probably at the highest level today after the mining collapse through the creative industries. The Harry Potter films generated billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. A film like King's Speech cost £7 million and grossed 300 million. And we have great artists in the BRIC nations, whether it's painters, filmmakers, in all of those nations, China, you know, and I think that there needs to be more attention in these creative industries. So I'd love to hear what the panelists think of that.
Well, you've got Bollywood.
Well, we have got Bollywood, we have got Tollywood, we have got the Southern Indian films. By far, India produces more films, maybe, than America, Europe put together. Also, we are investing in technologies, creating institutions, whether for film training, but also we are the global leaders in the animation, film animation. And cooperation when it comes to a look at what we have to offer, whether South Africa endowed with not resources, but in this case what you have said, with enormous natural beauty, Brazil, India, China. So for the creative minds and the film stars, enough locations to shoot and adequate infrastructure being built. Surely in the creative, yes, I think the film industry does get, or the creative industries do get the financial support, but at the same time, giving the example of UK has been a major economic power and the major manufacturing power, and in financial services they still are very strong. But the fact is that manufacturing is on the decline in most of Europe, and I agree with Professor Lawrence that no other sector can create jobs to provide work, sustainable employment to millions and millions of the young sons and daughters of our countries, unless and until we will invest more in manufacturing and make people employable by training them in skills, in vocation, and also in agriculture. Africa, I entirely agree, still has the potential, as I said, to meet the food security challenges of the world.
Okay. Yes, sir.
My name is James Cameron. I'm the founder of an investment business called Climate Change Capital and the chair of the World Economic Forum's Global Agenda Council on Climate Change. I'm interested in how this new alliance of interests can play a constructive role in the reforming of our economic development so that it is cleaner and greener and more resource efficient, so that we have sustainable agriculture, we have infrastructure that is low carbon, that we use the technologies that are being developed all around the world, including in these countries, to build a more resilient economy to the shocks that are likely to come if we leave climate change unabated. So I'm curious to know, I know many of the individual panelists have strong views and insights into this, into how this particular alliance of interests can be brought forward to accelerate the global development of a green economy. Okay,
Minister. Well, thanks very much, Lerato. Let me just say that South Africa will be hosting the UNFCCC's COP17 meeting in Durban by end of this year. And I have the honor to share with you that I have been appointed by our president as the chair of that very, very important gathering. And I know for sure that all BRICS countries seated around here and even the other members of the panel are committed to make sure that we work towards the operationalization, if not implementation, of the outcomes of Mexico, but that we will also spend a bit of time to deal with all the unfinished business of Mexico. We are also quite conscious of the fact that we will not finish all the responsibilities or all the items on the agenda in Durban, but we will make sure that we resolve developing to work together to mitigate against this challenge of climate change. I know for sure that all BRICS countries, as the Sanya Declaration had confirmed, have our own national commitments that we've made to mitigate against this. And we've got our own national plans that would contribute. As I've said earlier on, we all have responsibilities that we'll be playing at the global stage. From Durban, we go to Rio, and then we go to Delhi. So green economy, it's embedded in all our national economic plans, starting from China up to India. So we will be making contributions. I know for sure that China has become one of the biggest producers of green technology to help mitigate, and all of us here around this table are also doing our bit.
In 30 seconds, Obi, you wanted to add to that?
Oh, just simply to say that as far as the matter of adaptation is concerned, this is one aspect where the role of South Africa is going to be really important for the rest of Africa. Because as you know, there are important aspects in agriculture that need to get on the agenda on climate change. The water risk issues, the forestry, sustainable management of forestry through the RED+, all the things that have to do with embracing the hydro potentials of the continent and the carbon financing that it would require is simply enormous. And the BRICS can be part of that process of the financing issue as well as the technology issue, because India, for example, is beginning to look at the technology issues in a way that is very, very important for its important partners in Africa.
All right, on that wise and optimistic note, unfortunately, the gatekeepers at CNBC Africa say we have to wrap it. We're feeding into existing programming. So let me say a hearty thanks and with gratitude. Professor Robert Lawrence, thank you for your time. He's the Albert L. Williams Professor for Trade and Investment at the Harvard Kennedy School. Also to Ambassador Liu Guijing, who's a Special Representative on African Affairs from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for the People's Republic of China. Thank you for rolling with the punches here this afternoon. Let me also thank Mrs. Obiageli Ezekwesili, who's the Vice President for Africa at the World Bank. Certainly your views on business and very bullish investor sentiment. Colin Coleman, who's the Partner and Managing Director for Goldman Sachs in Africa. Thank you for your time. Minister, thank you for reminding us of our historical roots, where all of this comes from. Minister Maite Ngwana Mashabane, who's the Minister of International Relations and Cooperations for the Republic of South Africa. All fired up. The Minister of Commerce and Industry in India, Anand Sharma, thank you also for setting us straight.